Hey everyone, how's it going? Rose Guzzy here, back with another video for you all today. I'm sorry if I look a little rough. I know my hair is a little frisky, but I just got out of the shower and it's currently midnight. I guess Sunday night, Monday morning, if you will. Let's see, I believe it's been like 3 or 4 days that the Switch 2 has officially released. But I just wanted to make this quick video, kind of just like summarizing my thoughts on our Switch 2 overall, as well as giving a comparison with the Switch's competitors, if you will. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Starting off with the Nintendo Switch 2. I really like the sleek design. You can see it's very thin. I think it's actually the same with as a OG Switch, which is saying a lot. But it's like, really big. It's very nice in the hands. A lot of people say that they kind of wish that because they said the same thing with the OG Switch, but basically when you hold the Switch, you don't really have like a lot of support per se. But personally, for me, I really like the sleek design. I think it makes it better playing the portably. But I can totally understand people's concerns when they say like, oh, like I wish I had like a little back support, like something to put your hands on, to grip your hands on, which is why a lot of people they buy like cases with the grips on it. But yeah, I believe this is a 120 hertz 1080p screen, if I'm not mistaken, which is really good for a portable system, versus the Switch where this is a 720p screen. And the fact that you have like games such as Cyberpunk, which I believe it's actually in the Switch itself. Let me see. Let me get it out for y'all. Yeah, so the fact that Cyberpunk is even on this console in the first place absolutely blows my mind, because I was playing this game last night portably because I was really tired. I had just came from a party and I was really tired, but I wanted to play some Switch 2 and I wasn't really in the mood for Mario Kart World. So I was like, you know what, let me play some Cyberpunk. And I was so mind blown. I was generally mind blown. The game looked so beautiful. It looked phenomenal. It ran smoothly. And I'm not really a big advocate for FPS per se. It's only when the performance is bad, right? So, like, for instance, when you were playing Tears of the Kingdom on an OG Switch, a lot of the times, the game would dip drastically. Like, it was very choppy. It was very laggy because it was a stable 30 FPS, but the game was kind of demanding for an OG Switch. So a lot of times it would literally just, lag, and it was annoying. But when it's like a consistent 30 buttery FPS, like no dips whatsoever, 40 FPS as well, which I believe the Switch 2 can do on performance mode, it works. It looks really nice. Haven't really got to play Hogwarts Legacy, but Cyberpunk without a doubt is the best looking game on the Switch 2 currently. So it gives me a lot of hope for this console, because if the Switch 2 is like on the PS4 Pro scale, and there's rumors going around that like Red Dead Redemption is going to be on here, too, and we already have Elden Ring and Final Fantasy VII coming out. So when it comes to Nintendo IPs, I really hope we get a Nintendo IP that is super, super just graphically beautiful and very, very just insane looking. You know, something in the lines of like Twilight Princess, like, you know, but like more graphically impressive. Or Super Mario Odyssey on steroids, you know what I mean? Like, or even like an Ocarina of Time remake with like high end graphics, like on the scale of Red Dead or Final Fantasy. I mean, that would be really, really crazy. And I really do think Nintendo should take full advantage of this power and the 4K as well. Because now it seems like they're finally in competition with Sony and Microsoft. And I mean, to be fair, yes, in comparison to a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, obviously the Switch 2 is pretty underpowered. But given that we still get a lot of ports for PS4 and Xbox One, I think the Switch 2 is still pretty up there because, like, you know, Cyberpunk, for an example, it's like, yes, Cyberpunk is a port and it's a 5-year-old game, but when you think about Cyberpunk, Cyberpunk had a very, very terrible launch. It was literally glitchy. It was unplayable at the beginning. It was missing a lot of features. Clearly the game was not finished. But then once CD Projekt, or I forgot their company name, but once they started fixing it and adding patches, eventually, and DLC as well, the game got praised very, very significantly. So, you know, now it's like one of the best games like that's ever made, and a lot of people say that Cyberpunk is just one of the best games within this decade in general. You know, so in a way, the Switch 2 kind of got the what do you call it? It kind of got the final product, if you will, if you want to put it that way. So I think that's really cool in my opinion, but excuse me. But yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna open up the Steam Deck and we're gonna compare and contrast every single system. This actually comes with the Steam Deck, and I just think that's so cool of Valve because it's honestly a really high quality case. It really is. But yeah, so as you can see, the Steam Deck is very, very beefy. It's very, very beefy. And then here's the Switch 2 in comparison. Hold on, give me a sec. I gotta like. Okay. So here's the Switch 2 in comparison. They're relatively the same length, but the Steam Deck is it's definitely more girthy, if you will. But yeah. So there's that. Now, right off the bat, as you can see, the Steam Deck has some grip. So like, you know, I'm not gonna lie, it does feel a little bit nicer, if I'm being honest. In comparison to this, well, this actually doesn't feel bad either. But I can understand why people would prefer this, right? Another thing as well is I will say the controls on the Steam Deck are a lot better than on the Switch. I do think these Joy-Cons are definitely better than these Joy-Cons. But, you know, obviously with the Steam Deck, it's like, well, you know, the Steam Deck, because you have the Hall Effect analog sticks, which is like really, really nice, and it also has like some range, I suppose. They just feel really nice. They feel like these are probably the best joysticks I've ever touched, if I'm being honest. Like maybe even more so than PlayStation. You also have these little track pads as well, which can act as a mouse, but personally, I never really used it. But yeah, I don't really like the face buttons in my opinion. They don't feel as clicky. Like the Switch 2 little buttons feel a little clickier. And then obviously, the biggest downside with the Switch 2 is definitely the fact that we still don't have a D-pad. That is a big no for me. And I do understand why they have it like this, because so that way, you can play this, you know, like this with a little controller, but still, you know, it does suck that we don't have a traditional D-pad. It's unfortunate. Oh, did you hear that click? Yeah, so another thing, and then look, here's the Steam Deck and the OG Switch for comparison as well, which, holy moly, that is actually really crazy. The Switch looks so small, that's crazy. Something too, as well, is the bezels on the Steam Deck are a little more thicker than the Switch 2. Yeah. The Switch 2 screen is bigger, but I think it's like a minimal difference. But yeah, so another thing about the Switch 2 that I think improved significantly are the way you play. But like, see, whenever you hold the OG Switch, I feel like, I don't know how to explain it. It's not like a bad feeling, but when I hold the Switch 2, it feels a lot better. Well, actually, now that I think about it, it feels a little slippery, and I think it's because these corners are kind of like smoother. So, you don't really have that much support. See what I mean? But with the Switch 2, they're more, or I mean, with the OG Switch, they're more structured, I guess. So you can kind of rest your palms in it a lot easier. But the Joy-Cons, or the way you play portably, is a little different. First and foremost, this is a sorry ass kickstand. I don't know why Nintendo designed this kickstand for like this. It's pathetic. It really is, because if you want to play tabletop mode, it's a lot better just kind of resting the Switch on like a surface versus actually using the kickstand. For the OLED Nintendo Switch, they did fix it because they did add like a proper kickstand finally. But when it comes to this kickstand, I literally have no idea why Nintendo designed it like this. That is actually crazy to me. But when it comes to the Switch 2, it does have a really cool kickstand, as you can see. And you can actually put it all the way up too, so like you can lay the Switch, as flat as you want to. See what I mean? And I think that's really neat. And it is a little sleeker in the sense of like, because the OLED was like more bulky. It was more of a bulky kickstand, but this is more sleek. So I do appreciate that. Another thing as well is the OG Switch didn't have a lot of ports, because as you can see on the top, it didn't really have a lot of ports. And then on the bottom, that's where the charging port was. And a lot of people were kind of confused about that, because a lot of people were expressing like, oh, well, if I want to play, tabletop mode, how can I play tabletop mode, but also, the charger is at the bottom, so that wouldn't work, right? So that was a major flaw with the OG Switch as well when it came to portability. But when it comes to the Switch 2, not only do you have a port there, USB-C port, but you also have a port at the bottom as well, like as it always was like on the OG Switch 2. So basically, when you're playing portable mode, you have the option to either charge it on the top or on the bottom, which I think is really cool of Nintendo to do, because the fact that it was only on the bottom is kind of crazy. Because if Nintendo had added it, implemented it on the top, it would have been a lot better, because then it would have been like, oh well, you know, at least you can charge it whilst you have it on tabletop mode, like with the kickstand, the sorry ass kickstand. Um, but yeah, they had it on the bottom, which is crazy. Another thing too are obviously the Joy-Cons. Not only are the Joy-Cons bigger, significantly bigger, I might add. Now they are significantly bigger, but the new Joy-Cons are completely magnetic. So it is a lot better playing these, with the sideways Joy-Con, which I don't know a lot of people who would play it like this, honestly. I feel like it was a really rare occurrence, like maybe for like parties, like when people were playing Smash Bros or something. But as you can see, I'm like really, really like, I have to like really cramp my hands. You see what I'm saying? Like, look at that. Look at that. And on top of that, these buttons are very, very small as well. So you're like really, really cramping. And over time, it becomes kind of annoying, Now, obviously, you have the Joy-Con grips, which I'm not gonna lie, it does help a little bit, but I still think even with the grips, it's still kind of like you're still cramping your hands. But then when it comes to the Switch 2, it definitely feels a lot better. As you can see, my hands aren't as cramped. It feels more authentic, I suppose. But I mean, I still don't agree with this like play style. I still think it's kind of like weird, in my opinion. But it's like I was saying, when you want to play Mario Kart with someone, or when you want to do co-op at a party, and you don't have like a controller, and you don't have like two Joy-Cons for each person, this is pretty nice. This is pretty nice. Another thing as well is these Joy-Cons were like on a rail system, so you had to slide them in like that. And it was kind of like, I mean, it was an okay system, I guess. It wasn't like the worst system ever, I suppose. It was okay. And then look, there's a comparison of the screens as well. And I don't want to do full brightness because I don't want, well, actually, maybe the camera might pick up on it. Let me see. Okay, so these consoles are now on full brightness, so let's see. Yeah, I don't know if I can tell the difference, but in terms of size, there's definitely a difference. It's kind of funny because the OG Switch low-key looks brighter. I don't know if that's just me. But yeah, 1080p screen, 720p screen. And then the bezels on the OG Switch are obviously a lot thicker. Because remember, this isn't an OLED model. And I don't really know why Nintendo didn't launch with an OLED model, because they already have an OG OLED, right? So you would think that Nintendo would make an OLED as well. But from a business perspective, it kind of makes sense, because I'd imagine in the next 3 to 4 years, they probably will release an OLED variant, which I probably will purchase, because it's a funny story, because they had released the OLED version of the OG Switch back in 2021, and the main reason why I didn't get it was because of the Steam Deck. because I really, really wanted the Steam Deck. And at the time, it was coming out in 2021 technically. So I was like, oh, okay, I want a, I prefer this over like a OLED Nintendo Switch because I mean, the Nintendo Switch was very underpowered at the time. And not only that, but like, this could play like Spider-Man and this could play, Cyberpunk at the time. And I mean, I actually beat Spider-Man on the Steam Deck. It was actually really, really awesome. Oh yeah, and then you also have these back buttons as well. That's also pretty nice too. It's a pretty nice little gimmick. I had a lot of fun with the Steam Deck, but most of the time I do use the Steam Deck for what do you call it? For emulation. So like I'll play the old PlayStation 2 games and so forth. But every now and then I'll like probably boot up like God of War or Assassin's Creed Odyssey and I'll play it on my Steam Deck. Because it is, it works. And the Steam Deck also has an OLED version as well. But when the Steam Deck 2 comes out, I probably will get it just to support Valve because I think Valve is a very, very respectful company. Gaben as well, because like I said, they gave you this case for free, which is a really, really nice case. It's not even like, it's not a cheap case in any way, shape, or form. I mean, this is a really cool case. So yeah, that was really nice of them to do. But anywho, with the Switch 2, the Joy-Cons are magnetic. So there's these little buttons on the side of the Joy-Cons. You simply just press the button and boom. And they're really strong magnets too. Because a lot of people, their concern is that this little connector, like kids might break it off because they might like they might like take it off like the wrong way instead of like pulling out, you know what I mean? But I think Jerry Rigs Everything, a very popular YouTuber, y'all should follow him for his teardowns. He actually tried like, doing it that way and the connector didn't even break off. So I think it's fine. I think Nintendo definitely made it pretty sturdy. So I think Nintendo had that in mind of like, oh, what if kids like stupidly like tear off their Joy-Con without like pulling away? I'm pretty sure they designed it with that in mind, in prospect. But yeah, and then you just simply put it on like so. So I don't even think you need to use the button. I think you can also just pull out by like on its own. Oh yeah, but see, I'm trying to pull out and it's like, it's on there good. And even when you push the button, you kind of still have to forcibly remove it. So these are very, very powerful magnets that Nintendo implemented. So with these Joy-Cons and like when you play portably with the Switch 2, I feel as though you have more you have more security versus the slide-in method with the rail system, because if you were to drop your Steam Deck, if you were to drop your Nintendo Switch, it was very possible that your Nintendo Switch like would slide off, right? And with force, well, I don't want to do that, but with force you can kind of push it off, right? And it's like I said, if you were to drop it and it would like hit the ground, it would be like psh, and then it would like, slide right off. So because there were times that like even I was playing like portably and I was just playing like Breath of the Wild or something, and sometimes my hand would slip and then all of a sudden it'll be like, and I didn't even push the latch button. So when it comes to the magnets, you have more security because it's like, oh well, the magnets are obviously not going to come off. Like even when you try to like forcibly remove it, it's still really hard to do so, without pushing that little button. And even like cuz some people were saying like, "Oh, what if you accidentally push the button?" Well, even then, it's like I was saying, you still have to like really pull out. Like you have to put some force into it. Um so yeah, that's definitely that. But I do like the blackness. I think it's a nice color. And I do like the well, this is not even red, it's more like a salmon orange color. And this is like the same neon blue. But I think it looks nice. You know, because with the OG Switch, you either had the you had the gray Joy-Cons or you had the red and blue Joy-Cons. And a lot of like people were saying like, oh well, you know, why can't they just have like all red or all blue? But surprisingly, that one sold well. And it seems like Nintendo kept up with the tradition because, you know, they added the pink and blue. And this was the only variant as well. You couldn't have another option, like, you know, like for instance, um if these were like all black too, I feel like a lot of people would probably have purchased it. Personally, I think I would have went for that as well versus this. But even then, you know, it still looks pretty nice. But yeah, if we go ahead and we remove the Joy-Cons, you know, that's a really big tablet in comparison to the Switch 1. Well, to the OG Switch, as you can see. And then I don't really know how to feel about the Switch 2 logo, in my opinion. I mean, to be fair, I guess it makes sense. I mean, how else would have Nintendo went about the Switch 2 logo? Because I mean, I think it's a really awesome name. You know, it gets to the point. It's not like the Wii U, right? Because when it comes to the Wii U, it's like, okay, you know, a lot of people were under the assumption that the Wii U was simply the gamepad and it was a new controller for the Wii, right? Because if this was called like the Nintendo Switch Pro or the Super Nintendo Switch, a lot of people might get confused. A lot of people might be like, oh, is this like, you know, is this like a OLED type situation? Like it's like the same console but like a different variant. But you know, because of the two, I feel like it really, really emphasizes on like, oh, this is a brand new console, you know, this is like new games, right? Like this is a powerful new system, you know, to the point where you have like Mario Kart World and you have Cyberpunk, and you can only play those games on the new console, right? Because the OG Switch wouldn't be powerful enough to support the those games, right? But at the end of the day, I think the OG Switch was very, very special. I remember being very, very excited for this console, and I didn't get this console until my birthday because at the time I was in 9th or 10th grade. I was very young, so I didn't have a job, I didn't have a source of income, and I didn't have money saved. And even if I did, you know, my parents weren't gonna be willing to like, you know, do an online order, like pre-order, or like do a you know, wait in line, right? But for the Switch 2, I'm very happy to express that I purchased this with my own money. This was actually my very first console launch as well, because I purchased my PS5 barely last year. And technically speaking, I guess this in a way, the Steam Deck was kind of my first console launch, but not really, because I didn't get this until, let's see, it came out in like December of 2021, so I didn't get this until September, which is kind of funny because it was also around my birthday too. September of 2022, so that was a long time. But yeah, you know, I did my pre-order at Best Buy. I waited midnight. It was kind of a crappy launch because Best Buy didn't do it till like an hour later. I don't know what happened. I think they forgot or something. But I ended up I was able to get a pre-order and I got the Mario Kart bundle as well because Mario Kart is $80, which I think is ridiculous. And honestly, so far, like me playing the game, I really don't think it's worth $80. I think Mario Kart World is an awesome game. It's fun. It's definitely better than 8 Deluxe in certain aspects. But is it worth $80? No, no, it's not. Like if Rockstar charges GTA 6 for $80 or even Red Dead Redemption, that's worth $80. Not this though, not Mario Kart World. But yeah, anywho, I went to the midnight launch for Best Buy, which I'll probably post that video as well. If not, it's already posted. But it was a lot of fun, That was my first time I ever got to experience that. Because I was thinking about it and I was like, man, Nintendo's probably not going to launch another system for a good while. And, same thing with PlayStation and Xbox. And even then, I probably wouldn't go to a launch for like the next PlayStation, But like with Nintendo, Nintendo is like more meaningful to me in a way. But I mean, I love PlayStation just as much as I love Nintendo's Nintendo hardware, and Sony's IPs are just as meaningful to me as like Mario, Zelda, and like God of War and Spider-Man and The Last of Us, Naughty Dog, etc., etc. So yeah, but so far I've had a lot of praise for the Nintendo Switch 2. You also have the mouse feature as well, which personally I haven't used. And if I'm being honest, I probably won't use it ever. But I might low-key try it out with Cyberpunk. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm very, very excited for the Nintendo Switch 2's future. Donkey Kong Bonanza looks really fun, and the fact that the Mario Odyssey team developed that game gives me high hope because I loved Mario Odyssey. Metroid Prime 4 looks really, really cool. I am so excited for that game. And I think it's still cool that it's also coming out on the OG Switch as well, because I mean, to be fair, it was advertised to originally come out on this console. So I'm really glad that people who still own this system and don't have a Switch 2 can still enjoy Metroid Prime 4. But that game looks really, really beautiful. And the fact that it can run at 4K 60 FPS or 120 FPS at 1080p, that is insane to me. Now that's a game that I might try out the mouse feature with, to use it as like a first-person shooter, like aiming and shooting, right? I think that would be really cool. But I am excited to see what else Nintendo has in store. I'm super excited for the next Zelda game because I do think Nintendo is moving on to like a completely new Zelda timeline, or like genre, if you will. I think they're done with the Breath of the Wild universe because I think Tears of the Kingdom was the last game. So I'm very excited to see what Nintendo brings new to the table. IG Aonuma. I really, really hope we do get a more realistic looking Zelda game. Breath of the Wild is a beautiful art style. Tears of the Kingdom, I love that art style. But if we were to get something like Twilight Princess, I think that would be super awesome as well. The next 3D Mario game, obviously, is really exciting. But the reason why I'm not like super eager for it is because we have Donkey Kong Bonanza. So I feel like we might not have a 3D Mario game anytime soon, but hopefully I'm wrong. Who knows? But regardless of the matter, Kirby Air Riders, that's cool. But I think right now my biggest hyped game is definitely Metroid Prime 4. which I really do hope comes out this year because that is exciting. And then, for the future Nintendo Directs, we'll see. An Ocarina of Time remake honestly would go hard. That would make me super excited. Maybe like some Super Mario Wonder DLC, but yeah, I am very, very happy that Nintendo delivered a awesome product. I'm definitely going to be using this a lot. Bonanza comes out next month, and as a matter of fact, right after I finish this video and upload it, I'm gonna be playing me some Cyberpunk, because I never really got to play Cyberpunk, because it's like I said, I just got a PS5 last year, and I actually purchased Cyberpunk for the PS5, but then I started playing Spider-Man 2 and Ragnarok and The Last of Us, so I wasn't, and I would play online with my friends too, so I never really got to play Cyberpunk, but because now it's portable, and I get to play in the bed, it's gonna be a lot easier and a lot more accessible. And then Mario Kart World, I am loving it, but right now I'm kind of just like grinding and I'm trying to like unlock everything. So I'm trying to unlock mirror mode. I still have the NPC characters to unlock, and that's really tedious because you can only do it with Kamek, and it's like a huge gamble because Kamek is such a rare item. So, I kind of wanted to break from Mario Kart World. Hogwarts Legacy, I played a fair amount of it on PS5, but it looks really cool on Switch too. I'm actually a really big Harry Potter fan. I'll probably make a whole video dedicated to Harry Potter because personally, I'm excited for the HBO show. I know a lot of people aren't, but I am. And then yeah, you also have the GameCube as well. But like I said, I did do emulation on the Steam Deck. I have beaten Luigi's Mansion on here before. But I wouldn't mind playing on the Switch too, because it's like I said, I do prefer the sleekness of the Switch 2. I feel like it feels more comfortable this way because the Steam Deck, I'm not gonna lie, it is a little heavy. It is a little heavy. It is a little bulky. So like for the portability aspect, I don't really think the Steam Deck is like that significant, especially with like a case like this. It's kind of big. But with the Switch 2, I could be playing like this and my arms wouldn't really get tired. I feel like I would be pretty comfortable, right? But if I were to be doing that with the Steam Deck, at some point I would be like, oh man, like this is getting a little heavy. So then by that point, I would like want to like rest my arms and that would be better. But yeah. I do think the Switch 2 wins in that regard. But who knows? Maybe the Steam Deck 2 in a few years from now, I'm gonna be like, whoa, the Steam Deck 2 is so awesome, and the Switch 2 is so irrelevant. But yeah, y'all, that's gonna be it for me, because I am getting a little tired, and it's already 1 in the morning, which I have work tomorrow. But God bless, much love. Before I read the Switch 2 as well, I'm actually gonna read a chapter from the Bible. I haven't made a lot of religious or a lot of faith videos recently, but I should, because God is great, very, very beautiful, and the Holy Spirit will never fail you. But regardless of whether you're religious or not, I was gonna say God bless, but my best wishes and prayers to you all. Much love and prosperity. And this is Raul Esquezi, signing off.